The day the most powerful woman in the city walked into a crowded community center holding the hand of a little boy who was not hers, everyone assumed she had come to make a donation. Nobody expected her to kneel beside a tired single father, look him directly in the eyes, and quietly ask him the one question that would change both their lives. Would that be bad? She asked after he jokingly warned her that people might think they were together. But before that moment could ever happen, neither of them knew how much heartbreak they would have to survive to understand what those 4 words truly meant. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change someone's life, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can keep sharing stories that remind us that love sometimes arrives when we least expect it. Caleb Mercer had learned not to expect much from life. At 34, he was raising his 7-year-old son, Owen, alone in a small rented house on the edge of the city. His days began early and ended with him calculating which bills could wait another week. He worked as a maintenance technician at a neighborhood community center, fixing broken heaters, leaking pipes, damaged doors, and anything else that needed repairing. He was the kind of man who could make almost anything work again except his own exhausted heart. 3 years earlier, his wife, Marissa, had walked away after deciding she wanted a different life. She left Caleb with Owen and a note that contained an apology but no explanation. Caleb never spoke badly about her because he refused to teach his son that pain had to become hatred. Instead, he told Owen that sometimes people make choices they cannot undo, and the best thing you can do is keep moving forward without allowing their choices to destroy you. Owen was the reason Caleb kept moving. The little boy had a bright imagination and a habit of asking difficult questions at exactly the wrong time. He loved building cardboard cities, drawing superheroes, and pretending the community center was his kingdom while his father worked. Caleb often brought him along after school because childcare was expensive and because Owen had nowhere else to go. Everyone at the center knew them. The receptionist kept crackers in her desk for Owen, the elderly volunteers adored him, and Caleb quietly fixed things without ever asking for praise. One rainy morning, while Caleb was repairing a broken cabinet in the center's storage room, he heard the unmistakable sound of a car arriving outside. He wiped his hands on his work shirt and looked through the window. A black luxury sedan had stopped at the curb, and from it stepped a woman whose presence instantly changed the energy of the building. Her name was Eleanor Voss, the 39-year-old CEO of Voss and Hartwell, one of the largest technology companies in the region. Eleanor was known for being brilliant, disciplined, and nearly impossible to impress. Business magazines described her as fearless. Employees described her as demanding. Reporters described her as emotionally distant. What almost nobody knew was that Eleanor had spent years quietly funding shelters, food programs, and children's education initiatives because she remembered what it felt like to have nothing. Her father had died when she was young, leaving her mother to raise her alone while working 2 jobs. Eleanor had built her company from the ground up, but success had never erased the fear of becoming powerless again. She had come to the community center that morning because her company was considering funding a major renovation project. The building was old, unsafe in places, and badly in need of repairs. Eleanor expected a formal presentation. Instead, she found Caleb standing on a ladder with a wrench between his teeth while Owen sat nearby drawing a picture of a house with 3 people holding hands. Caleb climbed down, noticed her expensive suit, and immediately assumed she was another corporate executive who had come to inspect the building before deciding whether it was worth saving. Eleanor asked him where the director was, and Caleb pointed toward the office while warning her that the director was currently arguing with a printer that had apparently chosen violence that morning. To his surprise, Eleanor laughed. It was a small laugh, but Caleb noticed it because she seemed like someone who rarely allowed herself to laugh. Later, when Eleanor walked through the building, she discovered that Caleb knew every broken pipe, every loose floorboard, every child who needed a little extra help, and every elderly visitor who depended on the center for warmth during the winter months. He was not merely maintaining a building. He was protecting a small community that had nowhere else to go. Eleanor began asking questions, and Caleb answered honestly. He told her that the center needed new windows, safer wiring, a functioning kitchen, and a proper children's room. He also admitted that he had been using his own money to buy small supplies because he could not stand watching children go without. That answer stayed with Eleanor. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor began visiting the center more often. At first, she told herself it was business. Then she claimed she wanted to supervise the renovation. Eventually, even she stopped pretending. She liked being there. She liked watching Owen draw at the same table where children completed homework. She liked seeing Caleb kneel beside elderly visitors and patiently explain things that others were too busy to explain. Most of all, she liked the strange sense of peace she felt around a man who had nothing to gain from impressing her. Caleb was cautious. He had been hurt before, and he knew the difference between someone being kind and someone staying. Still, he could not deny that Eleanor had become part of their daily routine. She brought books for Owen. She helped organize donations. She even learned how to make Owen's favorite grilled cheese sandwich, although her first attempt was burned badly enough that Caleb laughed until his eyes watered. Eleanor pretended to be offended, but she smiled too. One afternoon, while they were carrying boxes of donated school supplies into the renovated children's room, Caleb noticed two volunteers whispering and looking at them. Eleanor noticed too. Caleb grinned and quietly joked that they needed to be careful because people might start thinking they were together. Eleanor stopped carrying the box. She looked at him with an expression he had never seen before. Then she asked softly, "Would that be bad?" Caleb's smile disappeared. For a moment, the busy room seemed to become completely silent. He could have laughed it off. He could have made another joke. Instead, he admitted that it would scare him. Eleanor asked why. Caleb told her that he had spent years rebuilding a life around Owen and that he could not afford to let another person walk into it, make his son care, and then walk away. Eleanor looked down at the box in her hands and confessed that she was scared too. She had spent her entire adult life believing that if she controlled everything, she could prevent people from hurting her. But Caleb and Owen had made her realize that control was not the same thing as safety. Their relationship changed after that conversation, although neither rushed to give it a name. Eleanor began spending time with them outside the center during daylight hours. They visited the city library. They attended Owen's school art show. They ate lunch at small neighborhood restaurants where nobody treated Eleanor like a CEO. Caleb slowly began telling her about Marissa, not because he wanted Eleanor to feel sorry for him, but because he wanted her to understand why trust was difficult. Eleanor shared memories of her mother and the years when they struggled to pay rent. They discovered that beneath their completely different lives was the same fear, being abandoned by someone they loved. Then came the turning point. A major investor discovered that Eleanor had been spending considerable time at the community center with Caleb and accused her of allowing personal feelings to influence a corporate funding decision. Rumors spread quickly. Someone claimed Caleb was using Eleanor for money. Another person suggested Eleanor was giving the center special treatment because she was romantically involved with him. The board demanded that she step away from the project until an investigation was completed. Caleb was furious, but not for himself. He was terrified Eleanor would lose the company she had spent years building. He told her that the easiest solution was to end everything between them before her reputation suffered further. Eleanor refused. She told him she had spent too many years making decisions based on fear, and she would not do it again. But the rumors reached Owen. A classmate told him that his father was only spending time with Eleanor because she was rich. Owen came home devastated. He asked Caleb whether Eleanor would leave when she became bored with them. Caleb had no easy answer. He sat beside his son and admitted that he did not know what the future held. Then Owen asked the question that broke his father's heart, whether people always left eventually. Caleb hugged him tightly and told him that some people leave, but that did not mean everyone would. He told Owen that love was not a promise that nothing painful would ever happen. Love was choosing to stay honest, kind, and brave even when life became difficult. Eleanor overheard those words when she arrived at the house to return Owen's forgotten backpack. She stood quietly at the doorway, tears filling her eyes. She realized Caleb had given Owen something Eleanor herself had never fully learned, the courage to love without demanding certainty. The investigation eventually cleared Eleanor of wrongdoing, but she made a decision that surprised everyone. She personally withdrew from the final funding vote and asked an independent committee to oversee the project. She wanted the center saved, but she wanted Caleb's dignity protected even more. Her decision cost her a powerful business partnership, but it earned something money could never buy: trust. Months passed. The community center reopened with a new children's wing, safer classrooms, and a small workshop where Caleb taught teenagers practical repair skills. Eleanor's company funded the renovation, but her name was nowhere on the building. She insisted the center belonged to the community, not to her. On the opening day, sunlight poured through the new windows. Children ran through the halls laughing. Parents hugged volunteers. Caleb stood near the entrance watching Owen proudly display a handmade wooden sign he had built with his father. Eleanor approached quietly. Caleb looked at her and smiled. He remembered the day he had joked that people might think they were together. This time, he did not joke. He told her that he had spent years believing love meant finding someone who would never hurt him. Now he understood that real love meant finding someone who was willing to be honest, patient, forgiving, and brave enough to stay when life became complicated. Eleanor took his hand. She told him she had spent her life building companies, protecting money, and controlling outcomes, but the most valuable thing she had ever found could not be managed or purchased. It had simply happened when she stopped being afraid. Owen ran toward them and wrapped his arms around both of them. Caleb looked down at his son, then at Eleanor, and realized that the life he once thought was broken had not been waiting to be restored. It had been waiting to become something new. Before they left the center that afternoon, Owen asked if Eleanor was officially part of their family now. Caleb looked at Eleanor, and she smiled through tears. She told Owen that family was not always about who shared your blood. Sometimes it was about who showed up, who stayed, who forgave, and who chose you again and again. Owen nodded as if that answer made perfect sense. And Caleb finally understood the truth behind Eleanor's question from months earlier. Would that be bad? Had never really been a question about gossip. It had been a question about whether he was ready to let someone into the life he had fought so hard to protect. His answer was no longer frightening. It would not be bad. It would be beautiful. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. And before you go, leave a comment telling us what you believe the greatest lesson of this story is: that people deserve second chances, that love requires courage, or that sometimes the family we build can heal the wounds left by the family we lost. Because sometimes the person who enters your life when you are afraid to trust again is not there to replace your past. They are there to help you believe in the future.